6 o'clock tonight. You know how it goes. How many times have you settled in for a super regional game knowing Omaha awaits? You can see Omaha. It's not much of a sight. I've been to Omaha. Anyhow, you want to go anyhow. You do. You want to be there. You want to be in Omaha because it's one more opportunity, one more chance to exorcise the demons that hang over this program because of the one spot in the crown that is missing its jewel. That is right. That's all. Florida State has all the others. The pretty colors are adorned, but they're missing the ruby, and it has pissed us off for a very long time. There's a missing ruby, and every time that's all we see. We don't see the sapphire. We don't see the diamond. We don't see the gold. We don't see the emerald, which is the best of all the jewels, in my opinion. We don't see any of those things because we're missing the ruby. Damn it, man. Could this be the beginning of when it happens, when they nicely fit the ruby to the crown and we say, no more will we fret as we're wandering down the aisle of Publix, randomly thinking to ourselves, how is it we've never won the College World Series? As you look at cereal, it won't happen anymore. You'll be at the grill with your buddies, tilting back a cold one, going, and we've won the national championship in baseball too. In fact, not only have we now fit the crown properly, we own a lot of other records that suddenly get raised on high to go along with the championship. Now, all of a sudden, what serves as an albatross is gone. Now it's something to hang your hat on. Now it's something that you adorn proudly. You say, you know what? Not only have we won the national championship in college baseball, but we've been to the most super regionals, and we've been to the most College World Series appearances. And we've done, like you just start using all those as wonderful additives to your greatness, as opposed to the things that weight you down with frustration. So that's like the big picture, the way I view the super regional matchups anytime we're in them, because I just want one more chance. It's all you can do. It's all you can do. You can just put yourself in a position to perhaps make a run at the right time and win the whole damn thing. And since we got a taste of it just last year, a taste of it as Tom and I did the watch along, and there it sat. It looked so good for so long, and then we overcooked it. We screwed it up, and the next thing you knew, despondency as Tennessee won. And you knew and I knew we weren't coming back from that. It felt like a heavyweight fight, and we lost in a decision, and it was a shaky decision. A shaky decision. Should have been a draw at worst, but a shaky decision. And now, you're still coming back from that. The champ ain't going to let you back from that. You had your chance. You had it, and you blew it. And we didn't come back from that. We ended up, we beat it. We beat another challenger along the way. But when we got our opportunity, it was over. We were a depleted fighter. And that was the end of it. And it still rings in my ears. It still frustrates me. And I just want more chances to get back. It's pretty crazy. Our own Ira Schafel doing a piece on how Link Jarrett successfully rebuilt this roster to an extent after losing so much firepower. And it's a great piece, and it's good to have a sense of perspective when you look at any individual season, to kind of look back and realize how we arrived where we are is important. And that's why I have been singing the tune of celebration for the successes of Florida State here this season, because it was rather improbable to lose that much firepower and still find yourself in the position where you're the 9 national seed and you're in a super regional. You're now 2 games away from going back to the College World Series for the first time back to back. And this blew me away. Tom and I were talking about this yesterday. Tom, is that correct? Was that 2000, 2001, or 99, 2000? Which was it?
99, 2000.
Sweet Jesus. It shows you how hard it is, man, because they had some good teams after that, really good teams. And it's just hard to go back to back. And, even a prolific, I say prolific because they have 3 national championship trophies in their case. There's no missing jewels for Oregon State. They adorn the crown, and then they grab the other crown, then they grab a third crown. Anyhow, those guys have only been to the College World Series 7 times. It's not a lot. Now, you think about a program that has 3 national championships, you would have thought, well, if you got 3, you've probably been there 20 times. You've probably been there 15 times to get 3. Oh, nay, just the 7. And they have 3. And I ask all of you, would you trade the umpteenth times we've been to the College World Series? How many appearances would you trade for a championship? All of them but 1? How about 10 of them? Would you trade 10 of them for just 1 title? How many would you be willing to give back? Because they're part of your resume. They're part of your history. They're part of why you're considered a preeminent program in the sport of college baseball, despite never having won the national title. Florida State, make no mistake, this is nationally renowned as a baseball program. It is known everywhere you go. The problem is there's always a caveat. There's always an effing caveat. You're at the airport bar in Dallas wearing your Florida State cap, and of course you're having a drink because who the hell wants to be sober in an airport? And so you sit and you have that drink and you belly up while you watch the highlights of whatever the hell is on from sports the night before. And it doesn't matter that it's 9 a.m. and you just ordered a beer. And the guy next to you did the same. He invariably turns to you and says, "Oh, Florida State fan, huh? Where are you headed?" And you say, "Omaha." "Oh, guys going to win it this year?" That's the caveat. It's always the caveat because everybody knows the history. And they only know the history because you've been that good. You've been that good. Charles Lee is on our screen for those driving around listening and why I started laughing. Yes, you do stare straight ahead when the question comes at you. You pull from that beer. And for some reason, that first sip in the morning of an airport beer is special for whatever reason. Usually it's because you're in a good mood and you're headed somewhere you want to go. That's why.
I think it's because the mouthwash elevates the flavor profile. your the toothbrush and then the mouthwash. I think that's what it is. You go, oh, this usually doesn't mix with each other. But
there are like 5 beers, Tom, that are especially good, that are different from all the other beers. The airport beer is very high on the list.
Okay.
Post mowing the lawn beer is, now that's a garage beer, by the way. That is not a kitchen fridge beer. That's a garage beer. You walk directly from the lawn and you are covered in sweat and leaves and grass clippings and nastiness. And you've got your headphones in and you've been listening to a great record and you have accomplished something that matters. Your lawn looks pristine. You walk into that garage, you open it up, and it's an ice cold, refreshing light beer. It is not a heavy beer. It is a Coors Light. It is a Miller's Light. It is a Bud Light. It's a Pacifico. It's an El Presidente. It is something light. It's not El Presidente. I call everything El Presidente because I love the El Presidente at Chili's, but it's the Presidente. It's a light beer. It's a lager.
All right. Can I play a Family Feud here and try and name one of the other top 5 answers on the board?
All right. We've got 2 in the books. Name the third.
All right. Shower beer.
Oh, buddy, you nailed it. I was hoping you'd go there. I didn't want to have to go there. I figured you needed to go there, and you did. Perfect.
All right. Oh, do I get to keep going?
Oh, well, because you got it right. I don't, yeah.
All right.
Now it gets hard.
Ballpark beer, one at a baseball game.
First one. First beer at the ballpark. Not the second, not the ninth.
Yep.
It's the first ballpark beer. That first sip, and I have a caveat of my own. I'd like to add it's an addendum. spring training ballpark beer
Mhm.
is even better than regular season ballpark beer.
Yeah, that's 100% true.
Yeah.
It's the crispness in the air.
Oh, it's perfect.
All right, the last one, it could go many ways. Oh,
We
man.
got shower beer, we got ballpark beer, we got post mowing the grass beer, and we got airport beer. We are 4 for 4. Give me a fifth. That's a tough one, man. I don't know.
No, I have to read this for you because you're the audience. It's not 100 people off the street where you get weird answers. I'm going to go with the beer while you're steaming over the grill and cooking on the grill.
That's a really fine choice, and I think that works. I would ding that. I would not ant that. I would ding that. Now, I'm with you on that. I think that's good. That is a good beer, Tom. That's a get me in trouble beer.
Yeah.
There are get me in trouble beers. We've all had them. The ones that go down way too easy. You're going, oh man, I could drink 19 of these. We got an issue. Like, yeah, everybody has it. You know when you're feeling it and you're not.
Given your affinity for the grill, I thought that was your answer. I'm going to go then. This would have been my answer, and it's Scout's honor, even though I was never one of those. Beach beer.
Oh, well, that's a good beer. You could have said that or golf beer.
Okay. Yep.
I mean, because how many times have you and I tilted them back on the golf course together? Sometimes that first one, when you take that chug and one of us goes, oh, man. And he's going to order in more of those.
Yeah. If you have a moment like Donnie, it's woo, I'm hot today.
Yeah. It's comical.
Usually, especially on the beach, and we call this, my buddy Brian and I called it a ballpark. It was the nickname of it, but Coors Light specifically. No other light beer, a Coors on the beach. There's something about the salt air that mixes with that specific beer in an unholy, wonderful way.
So recently, I had the opportunity, in fact, last week at this very time, to go out on Lake Lanier. And the first beer we had on the boat, Tom, as we were making our way through the channel, if you will, was an ice cold, straight from the cooler, adorned with ice. So when you take it out, there's some ice sliding down.
Oh, yeah.
The silver bullet.
Yeah.
As you pull, yeah.
Kind of trapped, too, on the top of it.
Oh, yes.
Ridge. You're like, ooh, I'm just going to knock that into the beer.
Slide that a little bit.
It's going to mix with the beer. It's just going to add a little more water to it.
Have you watched The Righteous Gemstones?
Yeah.
It's fantastic. So, Uncle Baby Billy, when he gives the kid
come on here now. Oh, come on.
When he gives the kid the beer, when they're sitting there at what was that, like a wedding or whatever, and he's like, "You want a cold beer?" The kid's like 12 years old, and he goes, I don't think I can. Sure you can. Give me that Coca-Cola. And he gives him his Coca-Cola and he dumps it out. This here's the silver bullet. Fresh from the mountains.
Fresh from the mountains.
It's so good. He's like, get you a pull of that right there.
Uncle Baby Billy's Bible Bunkers.
The best is also, I'm going to need, what is it, $2 million and cocaine?
Yeah. Come on now, don't be making me beg for it.
Yeah.
I'm not asking for a lot here. I'm just asking for a couple $1 million to shoot Tingus.
And an 8-ball of cocaine. Yeah.
He wanted to shoot the movie Tingus.
Yeah. Oh my Lord.
Why are you calling it Tingus? That doesn't make any sense.
It's so great. Anyhow, one of the great characters of all time. And I can only imagine the bloopers from that, just like we had in Eastbound and Down, where they're just cracking each other up because they give themselves such freedom to take the character anywhere they want to go. And as long as you're in that character, you can say anything racist, bigoted, misogynistic, absurd thing you want to say because you're this terrible person. Yeah. It's crazy.
I think the best character that would have had me in stitches, I wouldn't have been allowed on the set if I wasn't in the scene, is the youngest brother's top assistant. He's like, hello, brother. What is it you need from me today? I will help with your request.
You would have to run out of the room.
But why are you up in your treehouse? I love you.
well, that's like the character in Family Guy, or is it? Yeah. Oh no, it's The Simpsons, isn't it? The molester.
Oh, that's Family Guy.
Family Guy. Yeah.
That's Herbert or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, Chris.
Yeah. You wouldn't be able to do the voice. You'd be laughing too hard.
Why? You could come over here work on my lawn.
Anyhow, today's the day. This evening, 6 o'clock. We don't have to wait that long. I feel like 6 o'clock is a nice way to get this thing started. I'm sure Oregon State would have loved a night game tonight instead of 3 o'clock in the afternoon for them.
Look at this, all that boys sweating in Corvallis.
So our guess, on a quote link Jarrett here, I know all three of our guys are going to be in good shape. I'm worried about our personnel, number one. Okay, so it's hilarious that he has to throw out, all of our guys are fine, but I'm a little worried about the first guy. What's in the best interest of our personnel to be the best versions of themselves? You have to stay logical with what you're asking these high-level arms to do. I owe it to them to make sure we do it right. Now, he's referring to getting the most out of Jamie Arnold. That's the only thing he's referencing. He is not referencing any other pitcher on this staff. He is referencing Jamie Arnold and what does he need to do to get the best version of Jamie Arnold. And so his decision, because as Tom correctly pointed out, when I said I thought I would go with Vellini, and I said this on like Monday, is you're not deciding between Vellini and Mendez. Mendez is going on Sunday, regardless. So you're only deciding on Jamie Arnold, yay or nay, first game, on short rest or not. And I told you guys yesterday that I know for a fact that every piece of data that they have tells them that Jamie Arnold is an infinitely more effective pitcher on full rest as opposed to one short day's rest. And the numbers, whether it's spin rate or something as simple as miles per hour, tell you the story of who Jamie Arnold is. The well-rested, properly rested, on proper rest Jamie Arnold is potentially one of the most dominant pitchers in the country. The not as well-rested version of Jamie Arnold can get hit. He doesn't get lit up. He doesn't get blown out. But he's not the number one pitcher in the country. He's just a good pitcher. And this is for all the marbles, guys. We're playing 2 out of 3 to go to Omaha. And I don't want a compromised, pretty good, but not dominant starter to take the hill when I have the option of that guy starting the very next day. It is not a winner-take-all game. It's game one. I have a viable chance to win said game with Joey Vellini, who's had all the rest in the world. He's a horse in terms of size. So a well-rested, crafty version of Vellini, who's, I think, mentally tough. I don't think he's weak. I understand some people feel like the body language was bad recently and that he hasn't been dominant, and he hasn't been dominant lately. But he's shown more than once that when he gets rolling, he is in it for the long haul. He can be strong. So I feel good about Joey.
Look, yes, mental strength, get out of here. It's fatigue. I think it is season-long fatigue. Once again, you look at, the most innings he's pitched before this season, it's in the 20s. So he's going to places that he hasn't gone since probably high school in terms of inning count, but then the quality of the competition he's facing is higher than it's ever been. This is a USF transfer. So again, the quality is different. You need to be so precise at this part of the season. So as you're at your most tired that you've ever been in your career, you're facing the likes of a North Carolina, or you're facing the likes of an SEC team in a regional. Now he's got a lot of rest. I don't think, there was a start that Jamie Arnold made against North Carolina a few weeks ago where that's bad body language. That's legitimate bad body language. Joey Vellini is pissed off at himself for not executing things. That's two very different horses here with two very different colors. The whole thing is his arm dead? That is the question I have. This is as good as it's going to get for him because of the amount of innings he's thrown the last couple of weeks. This is as fresh as it's going to be. So, let's be optimistic for a second here and say Florida State makes it to the College World Series. If he looks fatigued again today, then to me, if you advance, your College World Series rotation is Arnold Mendez, and then Vellini is a bullpen guy or game 3 starter. So, there are implications for what happens next week if you can get to next week based upon today's performance. But body language looking like somebody who's not tough enough for the moment, no, I don't sense that whatsoever. I think we're just talking about physical stuff here.
Yeah, that's a great point you're making, Tom, about next week. I know we don't want to get out over our skis here. You got to win this week, and that Oregon State team's really good, and I want that to be known. That's a quality team, well-coached, know who they are. They've got an identity. It's a well-run program. It just is. I mean, Pat Casey ran that thing for 24 years. He helped decide who the next coach was going to be after the interim coach. And, it's one of his ex-players, Mitch Cannon. And they have carried over, and we listened yesterday as Joe Freeman told us. He goes, I don't, hear a lot of people talk about culture all the time, and it's culture this and culture that, and it gets a little old. It's kind of like the process was forever when people started talking about the process as opposed to results. But just because you hear people say it a lot doesn't mean it isn't valuable, doesn't mean it's not true, doesn't mean it isn't of the utmost importance. Process does matter. Process is very, very important. Process is what you ought to be focusing on as opposed to results, because it'll lead to the positive results more often than not if the process is right. And culture does matter. Upper management in business, culture matters. Running football programs, running football operations, running baseball teams, culture matters. And Oregon State's got great culture. One of the reasons we're so excited about Florida State baseball again is the culture's been cleaned up. Let's face it, part of the problems prior to Link getting here was that there was an erosion of that. And now you have good culture again, and you have a through line and a belief and a way of doing things.
I can't tell you the things I heard. I couldn't. I would get in trouble with the FCC when I was at Auburn just a few short years ago for the regional, in which it ended up, completing with a surprise firing. We thought that was a little quick, but it was because Link Jarrett was on the market, and Michael Alford, being a baseball guy that he has been in his playing career, was alert to the fact that this is going to be untenable. To me, I think that's his finest moment as Florida State's athletic director. That's a gutsy decision. And if you don't land Link because he takes a job somewhere else, man, that's a whiff in a moment where you didn't necessarily have to terminate the head coach. But judging by what was going on in the first base line in the family section during the Auburn Regional when we were there, and some of the chatter I heard in the pregame tailgates amongst family members, not coming to me and saying, and he did this to my son, and that, just them talking to each other, the dismissive tones, dude, the culture was totally broken. It was a mess. And now you have gotten to a place where this place feels more like a factory than it does something with dissent in the ranks. And that's a great thing for Link to have built up in such a short time.
Only because we have to break. I won't respond just yet. I will on the other side. I have thoughts on what you just said. Chef Cameron Show 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. So I don't think, Tom, and I'm not being, just devil's advocate here, but I don't think it was that brave a move. Well, you didn't say brave. You thought it was his finest moment. You're talking about the athletic director, Michael Alford. I think it was a no-brainer because of what you just talked about. It was pervasive. The understanding that the culture was corrupt here seemed to be pervasive. And I think that's a no-brainer. You got a chance to bring back a former All-American who's proven he's been coach of the year. He just took Notre Dame to the College World Series. He knocked off Tennessee at Tennessee. I mean, he knows what he's doing. He wants to be back home. You've got parents openly discussing at regionals where people can hear the problem with the culture of the baseball program. Now, you're going to cite legacy, and I get that because that's why it was tough. But in any other set of circumstances, you'd be like, oh, well, here's my opportunity. This is a chance to hire a no-brainer. I am going to be made to look good because this guy is not going to screw this up. I got overwhelming evidence that Link Jarrett is a great college baseball coach. Not good, great college baseball coach, and he's one of us. He's one of us. So I bring him home. We get the feel-good story. I know he's going to be buttoned up and organized. I've already witnessed at multiple stops along the way, not one, multiple stops along the way that he's been successful at. I have to do this. I don't have a choice, is all I'm saying. I guess maybe I'm a party pooper, but I don't give Michael Alford any credit for that. That seemed like the easiest move of all time.
It was early. It was early because they had made a regional at that point. Look, we can debate this till the cows come home, but I think that took. You needed to know that you were bringing in a solution because, look, Meat was off to a decent start that first year, and then COVID got in the way, but it looked like things were humming to begin his tenure. And then you come back and you have mixed results and, a regional appearance. But getting Lincoln here and making sure that you were going to land him, because there was a tenuous couple of weeks.
Well, Clemson desperately wanted him.
Yeah, they did. Well, and also they wouldn't stop losing at Notre Dame. So, that was a problem. So you felt like, more time was passing by. And hey, man, if they keep advancing here and they go to Omaha, if they beat Tennessee, if they do this and that, and they did all of those things, then are we sure that we're going to land this guy? Because I think if they were eliminated by now, we would have already held this press conference. But could it be that he falls in love with Notre Dame because they go on this magical run? Well, they must have known behind the scenes that Link was about effing tired, I almost swore there, of practicing at an indoor facility and breaking up the field with the lacrosse team and the softball team and the track team, and he has a half an hour to get his hitting instruction in. So that was good inside knowledge to have. But it's just in that moment, regardless of what you believe in Alford's decision there, I wasn't looking for that information. We happened to get tickets on the first base line.
Oh, yeah.
FSU block, and the Animals tailgate's the Animals tailgate. Everybody goes to that tailgate. I didn't need to go sleuthing like some sort of intrepid journalist in the 1970s for any inside information on what was happening with Florida State baseball's program. It was abundantly clear what was happening because people were not afraid to say beyond conversational voice what was happening with their kids, and it was eye-opening. It was
a couple things on this. Yes, you did not. It wasn't Watergate. You didn't have to meet in a parking garage. Like this was yes, and that's my point. Actually, it was known. It was out there in the baseball community. Later on, beyond the baseball community, and one of the reasons that it was beyond the baseball community were conversations like that within earshot of anybody that happened to be nearby. Number two, parents were tweeting. I mean, they were telling on themselves. I mean, they were on the internet saying very vitriolic things about the situation in Florida State. So to me, once you have that bit of information and this opportunity presents itself and you're worried about a tragedy, the way to look at it, in my opinion, is to flip it, Tom. If you don't act for fear of, it's early, and that guy takes the Clemson job and kicks your head in at a rival school for the next 10, you lose your job. You could lose your job.
Well, here's the thing, though. It all fell apart so fast. So I just pulled up the 2022 schedule, and I'm going down memory lane, and it ain't pleasant. It's because they crashed and burned towards the end of the year. They played Florida late in the year. It was in May. I don't remember that in Gainesville. That's really, really late. They lost that baseball game 7-5. Then they got swept by North Carolina and Chapel Hill the following week. And then they have to go to the ACC tournament. So you're going to the ACC tournament on a 4-game losing streak. You had won 30-plus games, and your winning percentage was fine. You were around like 32 and 20 or 32 and 19. That ain't bad. You're on track. Everything's okay. Then you go to the ACC tournament. You beat Virginia in 8 innings. You rule their ass. All right, course corrected. But then you lose to Link Jarrett at Notre Dame. Not a great look. And then you play in the regional in which you beat UCLA 5-3, and then Auburn stomps you 21-7. That is the descent that I heard was that Saturday night in the winners bracket against Auburn. You end up losing the next day 2-1 to UCLA, and then you're eliminated. And thanks for playing. But the record was fine. They were positioned well. The middle of the order was great with Tibbs and Ferrer. It seemed like he had a couple of his guys. Then you hit this nosedive, and basically what it unearthed was first sign of real trouble. People were already ready to walk, and some of those guys, if not the stars in the middle of the order, were looking seriously at just playing somewhere else the next year.
Yeah, you had open discussion of it. Look, there's no doubt, and luckily we're in a good place right now, and I don't want to relitigate all of the things that happened. Look, I always felt like there's no question Mike Martin Jr. knows baseball. I've never questioned that. Knows baseball, and he worked his ass off for this program. And, he loved Florida State. Don't know if he still does, but he did, and he knew baseball. It went sideways, and when it started to happen, it looked like it was going to become a bit of a mess, and they got out in front of it. They got out in front of it and made the move, and the opportunity presented itself. It did. You got a situation where, man, Link is. I mean, I've always felt like, from what I could tell, Link let it be known early on in his coaching career that if the opportunity ever came to pass that he could be the head coach at his alma mater, he would like that. He would like that. But he's a professional and a class act. He wasn't going to lobby, and he wasn't going to try to undercut anybody. But like, if the chance arose, this is what I'm doing with my life. This is what I'm doing with my career. I do love that place. I did go to high school and middle school in Tallahassee. I did grow up going to those games. I did go to Mike Martin's camps. I did play there. I was an All-American. I'd like to come back at some point if it's possible. And it worked out. It worked out. And I guess, really, to spin it forward quickly, I would say that where we are now is in a real good place. Now, listen, I get how all this works. If you lose to Oregon State and you get beaten 2 games, you lose game 1 and game 2, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. Certainly a possibility. Super regional, truncated series. We all know these things could happen. We could sweep, they could sweep. Who knows? But if you lose, there are going to be people second guessing. There are going to be people that say, oh, he shouldn't have started Volini. He made a mistake here. How do you do that? Whatever. That's what happens when you don't win the last game of the year. There are different levels of second guessing. Not everything is a referendum on the program. Not everything is a referendum on a coach. It's just that you fell short. If that happens, it will not change the fact that I believe wholeheartedly this is a program that will be a perennial power, will be in the mix with the opportunities to more frequently go to Omaha, consistently so, year over year, in a way that we haven't seen in a long time. This is a program that will be very good to great. They're going to be bad. They'll be very good to great any given year.
Yeah, here's the one thing, just to put a footnote on the Jamie Arnold versus Joey Volini Game 1 discussion. I think they agonized over it because you're looking at the war versus the battle. And if you knew for a fact, for example, that we were going to play in Omaha, that we were going to take 2 out of 3 this weekend, if you just knew that, no matter what order you go, you're going to win 2 out of 3, he would start Jamie Arnold today.
Of course he would.
Because next week, the first day is Friday, a week from today. So this whole thing about Jamie on 1 day fewer rest and it's not optimal is something that you're going to face next week. And it's actually going to be worse than the situation you're in right now, because tomorrow's game, from the body clock perspective, is 9 p.m. Eastern. So essentially you're pitching into early Sunday morning. And we could be playing at 2 o'clock on Friday, and we're not going to know the schedule there in terms of Omaha. It's 1 o'clock Central, and it's 6 o'clock Central, so it's 2 or 7. So you could be pitching as early as 2 p.m. on Friday, and Link counts the minutes and the hours very carefully about recovery time. So obviously you have to manage what's before you first, and that's what I think their decision is. But I think part of the reason they were agonizing over it was, well, we certainly aren't starting anybody but Jamie Arnold in Game 1 of Omaha. If it's Volini next week in Game 1 at the CWS after us advancing, I would be floored, because this isn't a best 2 out of 3 against one team. This is a bracket just like a regional where you got to stay ahead of the curve. And I don't care if Vellini shoves tonight. If he does against a good lineup and he throws 7 strong, 2 runs, and we win the ball game, that's awesome. But I need Jamie Arnold starting game 1 next week in Omaha. So I wonder if they were thinking about that as they were trying to make the decision, because he would be on normal rest next week if we're able to advance. But I'm glad that they went this way, because tomorrow's problem is tomorrow. You can't worry about tomorrow's problem today. I've got to get through today the best way I possibly can. And I think that's, if Vellini, barring something crazy switching at the end, if Vellini is the guy, I think that's the math that they were doing and probably thinking through.
Do you know for a fact we play on Friday no matter what?
Yeah, we have to, because half of the super regionals begin on Saturday. Half of the super regional series begin on Friday.
But the NCAA has shown they don't care for your rest, and they don't care for your body clock, and they don't care about what you just did. They just did that to they just did that to Oregon State. Screwed them unimaginably.
They did, but in this situation, regional play, everybody begins on Friday and everybody concludes on Monday. That is uniform. And I think the NCAA has an attitude of too bad, so sad.
If you didn't get it done efficiently.
Yes, correct. In this instance, they stagger the start times. So, I mean, it would be and the bracket is set. So, like, we know we're playing Louisville and Miami's winner.
Yeah.
So
no, I know we know our opponent. Yeah. I just didn't know if it was set in stone that you were playing that opponent on a Friday or a Saturday.
Perhaps I shouldn't trust in the logic of the NCAA, but I can't imagine that they would have because, again, you have to have both halves of the bracket play on the same day. Like, you can't have whoever.
No, I'm with you on this, Tom. I think you're right. Logically, you're right to assume, but it is the NCAA. And so I just didn't know for certain that that's the route that that they have to just go ahead and assume it's going to be Friday and then worry about this rest issue again. I will say this. Look, I don't know, something about pitching in the College World Series, let's say on a 7:00 at night on a Friday after having pitched Saturday. I don't know. I got to believe that there's an adrenaline spike, the likes of which none of us could imagine.
Right. And well, that ballpark helps too.
Yeah.
So you could give one up and it's a routine fly ball in the gap to left center. It's caught and, side retired. Versus tonight, tomorrow, it's going to touch 88 tomorrow in Corvallis, and it's going to be 6 p.m. And we know it's going to be sunny up there because this time of year the sun's always out. You make that same mistake on a Friday on short rest, and it's over the wall by 20 feet. So sure.
Next segment, I'll own up to being wrong, which I don't have a problem doing, and I will tell you what it was about and why I'm owning up to it. Jeff Cameron Show 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Hour number 2, Jeff Cameron Show 93.3, Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV on a Libations Friday. Loosey-goosey, laid back, talkative. We always are, especially on a Friday. Gave you the perspective of tonight's matchup between Florida State and Oregon State, what's on the line. All the goodness that is this is where you want to be. I don't understand. There's a trend. It's not a trend. It's a thing that happens on the regular, but I haven't experienced it yet. Maybe you are. You're an old soul. I'll ask you, Tom, but I see it in people my dad's age, your dad's age. I see it even with people in their early 60s. And that is the nature of fandom. And it changes, thankfully, as you age. It changes with perspective. It changes over time. When you're a fan of something, if you're an avid sports, and I would assume if you're watching this show or listening to this show, you are a huge sports fan. Either that or you love me, and that's fine. But what I would say is that when you're 14 or 15, you're irrational. Because you don't have perspective and your emotions and hormones, they're all out of whack. Nobody knows what the hell they're talking about when they're 14. And you watch a team and you fall in love with the team. Maybe you fall in love. You have a favorite player and you idolize these guys. I mean, they're your heroes, and I told you when I was a kid, man, I had a few. The first one I ever really loved was Roger Staubach, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, and later Tony Dorsett. You got to remember the Bucs were a new franchise when I was a little kid, and they just came to town. And so as I'm in my formative years, I'm loving Roger Staubach, because he would run around and make plays, and he was like a cardiac kid, and Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers were the two biggest entities, two biggest franchises in the sport. So you either loved Terry Bradshaw, Lynn Swann, Franco Harris, Mean Joe Green, or you loved Ed Too Tall Jones, Roger Staubach, Tony Dorsett, Harvey Martin, Randy White. Those were the guys, and everybody knew those two teams. And then later, when we finally got a team in Tampa that I could latch on to, and I was a Bucs fan, and then you rooted for the hometown team, and I still do to this day. It was Leroy Selman, and it was Jimmy Giles, and for me, Wilder. And that was what was so great about later on his son coming to play here. But yeah, there was those guys that you loved. Paul Gruber on the offensive line, I always loved him. He should be in the Hall of Fame. Now, all that stuff happened, but when your teams, and for me, you guys know, lifelong Pittsburgh Pirates fan, we are family. Omar Marino, Jim Bibby, Bill Madlock, Willie Stargell, Dave Parker, Easler, Foley, Garner, on and on. Can name the whole team. Manny Sanguian, start to finish. When they lost, it devastated me. You're 10, 11, 12 years old. You are devastated when your team loses. Later on, when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you're kind of an a-hole. You care way too much. It ruins your week. It's no longer childlike. It's this imbalance of like testosterone. It's weird. Like the way you feel about Florida State when you're in college is unhealthy. Like you hate people that root for other teams. You want to see them harmed. It's weird. And when you lose a game to Florida or Miami, when you're in your 20s, you might say things you later regret in life. You may think about that for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Well, somebody's yelling at the radio, 6 months, Cameron. 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is. And then there's the next stage of your sports fandom, which is, all right, I do admire these athletes and their skill. I admire, the effort and the sacrifice, but I don't idolize them. They're just people like me, and I love my team, and I want them to win, but I'm married with kids, man. I got to get home to my kids. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I can't control the outcome. I'm not the reason we win or lose, and I can be the reason my kids turn out okay, so I got things I got to focus on. I'll move on. We lost. Pisses me off. Don't like it. Can be passionate in the moment. Not going to say things I regret. Not going to overextend my emotions. Going to deal with it. Stare off in the distance for an hour. Maybe have a couple beers to help calm me down. Go play a round of golf with my buddy Tom. We'll move on. On to the next. It happens. That's what happens. And then you get to the stage I'm at now, where I begin to see people do something that has not happened to me yet, and I hope never does, but I'll throw it out there. You get so nervous, you can't watch. There's a stage of sports fandom that is equally as stupid as the one that you possessed when you were 21, which is irrational. It's I can't do it. I just can't take it. And you don't even watch your team play when they're in the biggest games that they're ever going to compete in. You decide, can't do it. I'm changing the channel. I'm going for a walk. I'm going to go to a movie, and I'll find out if they won afterwards because your nerves cannot take it. I don't get it. It exists. It's real. My stepdad, who I've mentioned before on the show, is a UF law grad. He is a bull gator. He is a diehard gator through and through. It's annoying how big a gator he is. And at least I know it comes naturally. He went to the school. He spent a lot of time at UF. And, okay, touche. That's your school. Got it. Root for your team. You should. That's your school. He won't watch the games. And I tell him all that he wouldn't watch the NCAA championship game. to win the national title in basketball, he wouldn't watch it. He'd go outside, he would watch a movie, flip back over, see the score, and then flip away. I thought, well, you don't even deserve to win the championship. You don't. You don't deserve for your team to win because you can't even watch. I do not understand that. I am not there. I watched my team play in every big game they play in, knowing that there's something to lose. There's something that it could affect you. You might be emotionally perturbed by the outcome. It might even linger. It might linger for a day, might even linger for a week. It might bother you off and on, driving around town as you think about the result of a game that didn't go your way. But not enough to not watch. It's going to happen one way or the other. You might as well watch. Why wouldn't you watch?
Yeah, I don't understand that yet either. I can sometimes wince as things are happening, but my eyes will be affixed on what's happening. I'll be like, ooh, like I'll make a noise now, like, oh, buddy, but it gets drowned out in the noise of the television or the noise of being in the crowd. I think a great example of it is in hockey where you give up a breakaway and you're like, oh, and you sit there and
you're ready for the announcer to go, goal.
Right, exactly. He scores. And you're like, okay. Or if it's Kenny Albert, score. I'm like, oh, thanks, man. Really enthused for the cup final. I would fire him yesterday. I went through the 20s phase, and unfortunately, this is where Facebook really brings home and drives home the shame that's appropriate that you should feel. I am so ashamed of myself in my 20s for statuses that I would put up about beating franchises like the Philadelphia Eagles or the Atlanta Braves or the Falcons or the Carolina Panthers. Hey, Tom, take a gosh darn breath. What is wrong with you? I would say hateful things, and I am deeply ashamed of that. But these are all the phases that we go through right now. The stage I'm in is pretty measured. I practiced that a lot with Florida State football last year. I was very tested by that. Yeah. But to do the post-game show was another great exercise. It's like if you want to be a long-distance runner, you get to run a marathon. Well, I got to do the Ironman last year, all right? Because 12 of those was hell on earth. But it teaches you patience, and it teaches you how to get through it. The one old soul that I knew, and this is one of my favorite moments ever, was my old roommate, Brian, a diehard Notre Dame fan. This is in college. So we're watching Notre Dame play, and this is the years that they had bad kickers. I told you the story of the guy going, not even close, and it's really awesome. But they had a fourth down to win a game. He's so nervous. We've got 3 TVs going, but we've really locked in on this Notre Dame game.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go for the game. Ball snaps, channel changes. And everybody there goes, whoa, what the F? What are we doing? And Brian, the fan, he has the remote. He goes, it's better this way, guys. It's better this way. And we're like, what are you doing? You're insane. And he's like, hang on. 5, 4, 3. And he turns it back, and Notre Dame had lost. And we're like, well, you get what you deserve. He goes, no, it's better this way. If I had watched it, I'd be more mad right now. I'm like, I don't understand you, my man. I don't understand it. But that I've never laughed so hard in my life. Once I realized it was him that changed the channel, I thought somebody failed him.
Yeah.
He held up the remote. And he goes, it's better this way, guys.
Listen, they're just like every stage in life. You miss certain aspects of the previous stage. Now, I can tell you this, again, as somebody who is aging before your very eyes in the great city of Tallahassee, where I have been on the airwaves for nearly 30 years. So you guys have known me in my 20s, and you now know me in my 50s. That blows me away. It hurts to say that out loud. But we've gone on this ride together. And you guys know that we've gone through a lot of stages together. There's single me living in an apartment, which was a bit of a renegade. I might have said crazy things and lived a crazy life. And you could hear it in my voice back in those days. Tom first tuned in going, Jesus.
Well, no, it wasn't so bad when I first tuned in 2006. But when I got the internship and I had to archive things from the early 2000s, I like that whoa, I needed a break after about 20 minutes. I went into the kitchen. I was like, holy God.
Well, I spoke 1,000 miles per hour, and I smoked cigars, and I stayed up all night, and yeah, there was a lot of things.
And things were said. I'm like, oh, shoot, man.
Yeah.
Like 2006 standards or 2009 was when I got the internship. 09 standards of radio were far more, you could go places that you can't go now. But even in 09, I was thinking, oh, that wouldn't play.
We were always on the cusp of crossing the FCC. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff then. And norms change and all of that, but also I do think there is more liberty in certain language on the radio now than there was back then. But themes-wise, Tom, you're correct.
Sure. Well, and look, there's podcasting, there's uncensored YouTube shows. You can go places there, but in terms of radio and like community standards, quote unquote, as the FCC has in the whatever the code.
It's nebulous, though. It's so like you can really get into like, okay, if we're going to go to court over this, like, you're going to be able to prove community standard that I violated community standards?
Right. Yeah. Well, there were a couple of segments I walked into Millar's office. I'm like, should I delete that? He's like, no, it's awesome. I'm like, okay, just making sure.
So my point is this, like, as you age as a fan, just as you do as a person, you look back on different stages of your relationships, your job status, in this case, your fandom. And there's a level of nostalgia that haunts all of us about any stage we've passed through and are now moved on from. Because you can never fall in love again for the first time. There's only one of those. And there's a lot of these moments where you look back. The first time you fell in love with a band, an album, you'll never do it again. There'll be other bands that you love. There'll be other concerts you'll go to. There'll be other songs that move you, move your soul, but never one as much as the first one did. The first time you were almost brought to tears by a song. It changes you, and you can never do it again. And you spend the rest of your life wishing you could. But you can't. That's how that works.
Chumbawamba, man. I get so fired up listening to Chumbawamba.
So there's all of that, right? And I don't miss the old days of fandom. I do. That's the one thing I will say. I don't miss it. I don't miss having Florida State as the preeminent force in my life. Like, it controlled everything. What I was doing, where I was going, who I was with, and the emotional status of my being were dependent on Florida State. Whether they won or lost a football game, a baseball game, a basketball game, you name it. I'm not there. I care passionately. I am more reasonable and balanced in my approach to these things. And I love Florida State baseball. I have a great passion for this team, for that program. I'm more fanboy-esque when it comes to Florida State baseball than I am with basketball and football. It's a little bit more empirical with the other sports. But I feel a flutter in the heart there in my emotions with baseball. And so this is as close, and this is the reason I brought it up. This is as close as you'll get to me being a little bit of a nervous wreck about going into this game tonight.
Yeah, I hear you on all of that. I have my Florida State programs that I'm like that with. One of them is the golf program. When they make it to television on Golf Channel, I don't even know what. I'm like,
you're a little irrational, right? A little irrational.
I'm like a parent of the players, though.
Yeah.
So like that's the difference. Is there's an empathy and understanding.
Sure.
Of like when somebody messes up.
Plus, that sport's effing hard.
It is, but like when somebody messes up, I'm like, you dumbass, you just 3-putted from 20 feet. I'm like, oh God, what's going on inside of them right now? Must be brutal. Oh, that's not easy. And sometimes Florida State baseball is like that for me.
Oh.
But you know what I find is that I'm more of a Buccaneers fan now than I've been in 25 or 30 years.
Oh, that's interesting, Tom. That is fascinating. I'm glad you said that. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the nostalgia of our original home. You're rooting for home. when you're rooting for the Bucks. That's where we grew up.
I think part of it too is like when we were at ESPN, Saturday after the pregame show, we were done for the weekend. And again, like I love my job. In fact, there's so many things better about this particular job than the radio station job for my life, like quality of life. It's much better. But we were done in the pregame show. So the crescendo for the weekend was Florida State football, right? Because you're done. We'll talk about it on Monday. Just enjoy the games and plural. So Florida State plus the slate of college.
Yeah.
Now, I think I understand more what it's like to be a beat writer back in the day, like I was in 2010, 11, and 12, which is you're not getting out of that stadium or you're not done with the game that Florida State plays until hours after it's over.
Yeah.
And you're going to beat it to death in terms of analysis throughout the day. Like you don't watch it as a fan. You watch it like it's a lab experiment. And then like sometime on Monday or Tuesday when we do our shows, finally I'm experiencing it as a fan. Like it's like the emotions rise to the surface rather than the job. But the NFL on Sunday is for me when I now get that breather. It's when I can exhale. And so I'm finding that I don't care about the injury report of the Bucks. I just want them to win. Like it's almost gotten simpler to watch the Bucks play. Whereas it used to be when I was in college, man, I'd be grinding over the inactives report for the Bucks on Sunday morning. And it would be like this serious thing. Now it's the exhale to watch them play on the weekends. So I just find myself being more simple fanish and enjoying the process of watching 60 Minutes more than I used to.
I've had a weird sort of, I guess not, maybe an understanding of my fandom with the Bucks, like a revelation. I went to the playoff loss. I was in attendance at Raymond James, sitting on the 12-yard line or thereabouts. When we lost to Washington and Jaden Daniels, it was freezing, by the way. And I was adorned in my thickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers jacket, which I never get to wear, which was awesome. And it was so fun being around the Bucks fans there. Now we had good seats. We weren't in the end zone where it can be dicey. But anyhow, that was.
What is that yellow cloud emanating from somebody's vape pen?
Yeah.
Dear God.
Yeah, that's meth. It's the end zones of NFL games, any NFL city. Rode hard, put up wet. These people this is their moment. Anyhow, so playoff games are different. Those are hard tickets to come by, and they're not cheap. And so anyhow, we're there, and I really, really wanted the Bucks to win, obviously, and I was heartbroken when we turned it over running a stupid trick play. It wasn't really a trick play, but it is for the NFL. Like, why are you riding the guy on a reverse? Stop doing that. What a dumbass play call. Anyhow.
Hey, now.
I mean, well, you know what I mean with the mesh hand up. What are we doing? We're not Wake Forest. Don't run that play. Anyhow, so we fumbled the ball, and, we're going to lose. So, and I did marvel at Jaden Daniels. I kept thinking, man, this kid keeps getting better, and this atmosphere is not bothering him in the slightest, and they're going to go down and score. That's what they're going to do because we're not going to stop him. All of that, and my heart sunk. But I had pause to look around and to enjoy the fact that I was at a Bucks playoff game with dear friends, and it meant a lot. It was cool. I was able to do that without freaking out, but I will admit the pregame atmosphere of a professional football game is ass. There's nothing great about it. There's no draw. There's no allure. College still has that.
Yeah.
Florida State pregames are awesome. Even at 2-10, you and I doing the pregame show from the roof at Hotel Indigo, and then having the opportunity to mingle with fellow Florida State fans, many of whom have become friends of ours, people that we really enjoy seeing on Saturdays that come into town, some who only come into town during football season, and we see for the first time in a year. And even after the losses, there's a shared bond that is very different. Pre-game, it's great. Post-game, not so much. Pre-game, it is great. Now, post-games became tougher because we lost all the games. Almost all of them. I'd like that to change. I'd like to enjoy post-games again. I'd like to frolic amongst those that are celebrating and the camaraderie rises to the surface. That would be great.
Woo.
instead of just oh, let's watch another program that's better than ours, which is all of them. So that was tough. You know why why we were both better able to handle last year, surprisingly so, in the midst of going 2-10, is there was an air of inevitability to the outcome before they kicked off by about week 4.
Yes, I would say for me it was the Memphis game when I saw how poor they were on the defensive line, and we decided not to scheme it up to just push them backwards. So I was like, okay, well, then you're in your head. So not only are you not as good, not only have we been led astray here on the viability of Darius Washington's candidacy as an All-American left tackle candidate and any number of other things. You can't even do the basic stuff where there's somebody in front of you who's weaker than you, and you decide to get fancy about it. It was in that moment I said, all right, we're done here.
What made me mad about that, Tom, is we did know it, and we did do it. First play of the game, blew their ass, ran power right at them. Suck it, get you some. We drove you 7 yards off the ball. In that moment, Tom, the game is over. Yeah. Literally, the game is over. If I'm watching a professional football game, okay, so the highest level, and I watch the first play from scrimmage, a 32 veer, I'm watching a freaking veer. You are handing the ball to the tailback who's going through the 2-hole, and they get 6 yards. You got to pull up the app. Pull up the app, boys.
Yeah, that was well, that was the alarming thing when Georgia Tech first got the ball. Their first play from scrimmage in Ireland was that. And it was the ultimate answer. They hadn't scored a touchdown yet, but it was the ultimate answer to our drive.
Yeah.
We're like, all right, now let's get the defense on the field. Let's see what you got. And then the first play is running like gain of 7. I'm like, whoo, well.
Yeah.
Farmer, Jackson, Peyton, they just got destroyed. I'm
and
like,
you just tipped off your cap. You're like, Brent Key's got a little something for that ass.
Here I thought, this was going to be a nice little coronation day, and now we're in for a testy time.
So that you were right to choose that game to check out, because the moral to the story here, everybody, is that we didn't run that play again. And we decided, despite overwhelming evidence of superior strength, we're going to not do it anymore.
Well, yeah, because the reason was in the scout, just watching the Troy-Memphis game, Troy was able to, even though Troy got blown out in situations of short yardage early in the game when
they moved him off the ball.
It's third and obvious. It's near the goal line. They blew him off the ball. I'm like, well, if they can do that, surely we haven't fallen to a level that we can't do that. And we could, but as I recall, we fumbled the very next play after first down.
But that should not keep you from – I mean, you have the evidence you need.
It shows it shows you panicked at that moment. Well, now you got crazy.
2 plays into a football game, you're panicked. Yeah, let's not do that this year, guys. Let's not do that this year. It's Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant. So after that diatribe on Fandom, we come back on an even keel plane. We're good to go. I'll say this just to get Tom riled up. I believe that if a player, any player in any sport, again, the nature of fandom here, lasts long enough, plays the game long enough, that invariably you come around, especially if they're great, you come around to their greatness, and at some point have it in you to kind of root for them if they're still doing it. You know where I'm going.
Larry Chipper Jones?
No, God, no.
Because no. The answer is no.
No, you don't have to love Chipper Jones, and at no point did you ever go, oh, good Chipper Jones. But no. No, I'm talking about transcendently great players like a Tom Brady or a Michael Jordan or a Tiger Woods. At some point, people came around to that level of Mount Rushmore greatness. And just, there were people who were not Tiger Woods fans for a long period of time when things came out about Tiger that you're like, oh, my goodness. Okay. Not a great guy. Got it. But we all got a little choked up when he came back down to earth and won the Masters. That you came around. You're like, all right, he suffered enough. Come on, Tiger. You've given me so much joy in this game.
That's also the magic of Augusta National. I mean, again, I'll go back to 2016, Sergio Garcia on the final day. What does the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill have in common with Sergio Garcia? Nothing.
Nothing. And they were all rooting for him.
And people were not weeping, but they're like, come on, Sergio. Like, well, damn it, if this isn't like the ultimate moment that tells you what Augusta is about.
Yeah, and it's also like at some point, if a guy has suffered enough or he's been so close, look, the whole world, I don't want to say the whole world. There's somebody listening saying, no, I don't agree with you. That's fine. Most people wanted Rory to finish it off. Just go ahead and win the effing Masters and be done with it, because we can quibble with Rory McIlroy about any number of things. But I will tell you this, and I know this for a fact. The world of golf, meaning people who play the sport, work within the sport, cover the sport, universally like Rory McIlroy. They do. They all do. He's a good person, and he's a smart guy, and he's cared deeply about the game for the right reasons for a very long time. And he's also been, frankly, mistreated by the tour at times. And when he won, everybody within the game was like, good. Okay, good. Got it. Did it. The albatross is removed. And they saw the emotion. The man fell to his knees weeping. You knew that was a lifetime of a weight of frustration and grief.
It was that was so real. A lot of times the end of a tennis Grand Slam or major,
right,
that is contrived nonsense that the guys fall to their knees because they feel like they need to.
Right.
Rory, what was special about that one was that he knew the magnitude of what he was doing every moment that he was living through it, which usually you're supposed to block out, he's one of the most human athletes I've ever seen in my life.
Right. And when he fell to his knees and heaved, you thought, good on you, man. Good on you. That was real. That was real. And it was awesome. Anyhow, my point is, no matter if somebody's transcendently great, and he is, only 6 people have ever won the Grand Slam, and he's one of them, then you tend to come around. There's a moment in time where you're like, all right, I love sports. And I love what's great about sports is this very connectable human endeavor, the trials, the all of it. You're like, in a way that so many other things don't possess, right? Sports does that. And we connect, we love, we hate, we share the joy and the fears and all of it. Buddy, if Djokovic wins the French Open, sir, he's 38 years old. He has no business. And on that surface, what is going on right now is insane. He's not going to win, Tom. He's not going to win. You don't have to worry about it. But this is unbelievable what he is doing right now at 38 years old.
Yep. Mm-hmm. No, man, that guy, and here's why. There have been times in his 27-year reign as one of the preeminent players in men's tennis, if not the best for 20 of those 27 years, where I have flocked to his side. I'm like, you know what? People do have this thing for Joker. He's not imagining something. Like, people do kind of hate him because he's not Federer and he's not Nadal.
Correct.
I feel bad for that. And then he'll do something where I go, oh, never mind. They're right. They're all right. He's wrong. They're right. He can't help himself. This freaking guy. And it happened one too many times for me. So that's what that is. But I've had 2 decades to ponder this with this a-hole and this stupid men's tour that apparently nobody can compete outside of 3 dudes for the last 20 years. And it was cool when it was Federer, and it got a whole lot cool when it was not special anymore because Rafa and Joker just win everything in the last 10, 12 years.
So let me say this. Alcaraz, at the time that we're recording this show, is losing to the 8th seed Musetti. If Alcaraz loses, we may get a Jokic championship day, but he's got to beat Sinner, which is on right now if you're listening to this show. And Sinner is the number 1 seed and the best player, and on this surface, he should beat Jokic. This should be over. I mean, Jokic, I should say. Djokovic. I can't speak. I'm thinking of basketball.
You're thinking of Nikola. Yeah.
Yeah. But if Joker beats Sinner and Musetti beats Alcaraz, you're going to get a 38-year-old winning the French Open. And I don't need to tell you this, but because he remains one of the preeminent players in the world, he's no longer the best player in the world, but because he remains one of the preeminent players in the world, he wins enough events very quietly during the course of the year that he's now surpassing records that are the stuff of legend. Most career titles won on a surface, most career, most sets won ever in the history of the sport, like things that it's just getting silly where it's going to be inarguable.
The whole sport is silly at this point. It's just, it infuriates me because apparently either there's two ways it works. Either one, you have three of the greatest players to ever play the game, ever coexisting at the same time, which would be remarkable. If you really want to think about it that way, it's remarkable. And it defies all odds that you didn't have this type of run in the 80s or the 90s. Even Sampras didn't have a run like this. And it felt like what he was doing at the time, in real time, it felt like what he was doing is what Federer did and what Nadal did as a specialist, albeit, but he racked up, unbelievable amounts of majors. And then what Djokovic is doing. So that's one way to look at it. The other is has the game lost itself? That there isn't any natural order of challengers. It's almost like Tiger's early career. Mm-hmm. It felt like the PGA Tour was kind of thin, not taking away from his greatness because he's beating people by 15, but nobody could come within 5. What the hell is this tour? And now it feels like the tour, for example, is in a very good place the last 5-6 years where it's extremely competitive. Yeah. It doesn't feel like it's a competitive sport the last 10 to 15 years. When Federer did it, it felt special. And now it just feels like, whoever the best player is just going to be the best player for a decade.
But the thing is, Alcaraz hasn't touched Federer and Djokovic. Those two individuals, or Nadal. He hasn't, I do think, Tom, I actually think we should appreciate it. We did get a magical triumvirate. We did. So to me, Federer was obviously the creme de la creme. And then along came Nadal, who I don't give nearly the same credit for as Federer. Nadal couldn't touch Federer. I don't care what their record is head-to-head. Federer was superior because of his dominance across surfaces. Nadal has 13 French Open titles. Get the hell out of here. Most all your titles are on one surface. Get out. You don't count. Djokovic is the one. That's the one who came along and bested them both, which is stunning. Stunning. It doesn't make any sense that we had it. But I will say this. Tennis oddly does this, and I go way back with tennis. When I came up, Roscoe Tanner, Jimmy Connors, John McEnroe, and Bjorn Borg went to war. And these are all-time greats. There's in the pantheon of tennis, all-time greats. At one point, you've got Bjorn Borg holding up his 5th consecutive Wimbledon championship. Bjorn Borg was this beast that McEnroe had to slay in order to, right? And in women's tennis, Martina Navratilova did this, right? And then Steffi Graf. Steffi Graf did it. And then eventually we get to Serena, and Serena does it. So you always have sort of this dominant figure. When you get to Sampras and Agassi, which is what you're talking about, these amazing runs with Sampras, and there's a little bit of stretch in there with Boris Becker being added to the McEnroe era, but Agassi, Sampras, and you would throw in later on, really Jim Courier had a brief moment, but nothing great. It was Sampras, like you point out. And yes, it wasn't the kind of dominance that we've seen now. We got lucky. We got 3 that I don't think any combination of Alcaraz, Sinner, and whoever else you want to throw in there are going to come close. They're not going to come close.
Well, yeah, what I'm saying is that this guy can be 38. You're supposed to be old in tennis at 27, right? That was the old definition of this whole thing. It's just, I'm looking at the list. So without these big three, Sampras at 14 was the gold standard, and it was thought that nobody's probably going to catch him. And then Federer eventually gets to a place where he's winning 7 and 8, and you're like, oh my God, this is sustainable. Look at this guy go. And he climbs and he climbs, and he gets to 20, and it was like, well, nobody's going to touch 20. And then because Nadal at that point, it was such an injury case that it didn't seem like his body would hold up to even threaten it, even with all the French. And he gets 22, and now Djokovic is 24. It's almost like the steroid era in baseball. It dilutes the rest of the product in a way. And I'm not saying it's literally steroids. I'm just saying that, man, it undercuts how special it felt when it seems like multiple people can cross this impossible threshold. It would be like if in 15 years with Aaron Judge and let's just say Mike Trout healthy and Ohtani, it's like there's 7 dudes or 4 players with 800 home runs. And you're like, okay, well, now it's not even that special anymore.
I hear you. I do think what happens is bigger, stronger, faster, an unbelievable emphasis on perfect, not good, perfect nutrition year round. And Djokovic, which you just pointed out, has the most titles. And he also has the most big titles, they call it, 72 of those, 24 majors, 40 masters, 7 year-end championships. He's all the things that tennis uses to judge a season. He's the record holder in. But he's also a freak because he's 6'2", 184 pounds of pure lean muscle with long ass arms. Yeah, he's like the perfect specimen for tennis.
Yeah, it's like Michael Phelps is to swimming what Djokovic is to tennis. I totally agree. It's just, again, I'll do one more analogy. Imagine if we're sitting here 15 years from now, and Scotty Scheffler's got 24 majors and Rory has 22.
Right. Well, that's not going to happen.
Some dude we hadn't heard of has 20. You'd be like, well, was the Jack thing special ever at that point? You're like, it's been totally minimized.
Yeah, but that's just, I hear you, and I get the analogy. It's just not going to happen. I mean, what we've come to learn is Jack is the most special in the history of the game when it comes to majors because of the first and second place finishes.
Yeah.
Whereas Tiger at his peak was better than Jack ever was, but he didn't accomplish for a career what Jack did. So those are the 2 lines of delineation. Tiger was better than Jack when both were at their best. Jack had a better career than Tiger Woods.
I think that's probably true. I think
Jack would agree with that. I think he has.
Yeah.
Relative to par, nobody ever did what Tiger Woods did in the early 2000s.
Relative to the field as well. That's the other thing. But I think that is the cloudy factor. Is while Phil existed, Phil won several majors after Tiger was either hurt or, in a position of he's out of the game.
Yeah.
Phil, but he counts. So he's in the club. But over Jack's greatness, there's 7 Phils. That existed in that period.
There are, but the fields weren't as good. That's the big argument. The depth of those fields sucked. This is the argument that NBA people do all the time with, they were plumbers and whatever. You talk about the greats in the NBA in the 70s and the 60s. They're like, well, who were they up against? They were up against a bunch of plumbers and painters. It's not fair, but people do that a lot. And they'll just point out that upper 10% and say, well, those guys were great, and they might have been able to play in any era, but what they were going against wasn't. Yeah, sure, we'll point to Gary when Jack played. We'll put to Trevino and Arnie. Arnie was at the end of his career, but yes, Arnie. And you have, that run.
Jack had unseated him in the 60s, though. So, the first decade, there was him, then it was Gary, then it was Trevino, but then
Watson,
Tom Watson was the foil in the 70s.
Watson was great, but the depth of those fields when you go back were not as good. Jack has said this. There weren't, and then later on we've got our own Brooks Koepka pointing it out. Jack was the first to ever say I eliminate half the field. And that's because he knew 65% of that field was ass.
That's true. So here's the thing. The argument I would make for Jack, and I truly believe that Jack was the better player, that Tiger was more dominant relative to his era. The year after Tiger boat raced the field, a win for the ages, Jack beat Tiger at Augusta. Jack, over 4 days, beat Tiger at Augusta. He's in his 50s.
Yeah,
that's
that course,
unbelievable.
Yeah, but that course allows for that. I could pull out a million outliers where a 68-year-old the German is out here
Yeah.
Yeah, he's finished ahead of some of the greatest players in history numerous times at the Masters.
I'm just saying they were in the midst of tiger proofing all courses, and Jack rise up at nearly 60 to beat Tiger. Like,
over 4 days at that place, yes. But Olazabal did it to people who are much better than Olazabal, and I mean, like it's. I bet we go back and find Olazabal beat Tiger in a tournament at some point too. These guys who played for a long time and then they have certain courses.
Olazabal ended up winning the next year. He won a 99.
Right.
That was his Masters. But it's just he wasn't 30 years the kid's senior. It's like,
golf is that sport because Tom Watson outdueled Tiger and everybody else at the British Open except for Stuart Sink. And he was 58 years old.
And the 18th green. Yeah.
Oh, still bothers me. Jeff Cameron Show 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. And that, my friends, is a sign we are in the summer, but also the joy of the summer. Long conversations about why it is we love sports and the various aspects of them that we discuss amongst each other, whether that be bellied up or on a sports talk radio venue such as this or on a long drive with our dads. This is how it happens. And this is a through line that we kind of share, whether we agree or disagree with each other vehemently, meaning all of you and me and whatever else it might be about any one point. That's fine. That's the joy of it, and getting perspective on all of that. And we'll add to the ledger of these discussions. And that's what's also happening in these big moments where you play in Oregon State in a super regional, and you know that this will add to the ledger of Florida State's lore of a baseball program. Will it be positive? Will it be negative? It's positive we're there, and I appreciate it. I can do that before you play this game, and I can do it if I'm upset afterwards. I would like to celebrate it and say it was a stepping stone, and now it's off to more memories from Omaha, which, come on, man. Come on, man. Short segment here. I'm just imploring the baseball gods.
So,
come on, man.
The bookings that I was looking at, I got bamboozled. Because some airlines show you the price for just one way before you pick up the second one. And I was thinking, dear God, I can get out there for $450 to Omaha out of Panama City. That's one way, Jack. So it's $800-900. We'll see if we make it. What I'll do. The best flight is out of Atlanta, so that's the whole old adage. Do I feel like driving 4 hours for a flight back and forth?
It's not the drive there. It's not the drive there. It is most certainly always the drive back.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, I would say this. And I'll tell you what, the worst of it was me, Ira, and Aslan 2 years ago flying back from Ireland. Not last year, but 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever it was, flying back from Ireland to Orlando. And then getting in the car and driving back from Orlando. And first of all, you land in Orlando and it's 100, which is just the most depressing thing in the world. And then secondly, you get into a car and I'm the driver, which I want to be, but I'm driving back from Orlando after a flight from Ireland and it's pouring rain. And these two dudes are snoozing. Yeah, that was a good one. Final hour forthcoming. Stay with.